Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. This is the second in a series that CANSO is bringing you in partnership with First Fruits on the really important issues of hiring and staffing and how we ensure our careers remain attractive to deliver our workforce needs both today and in the future. Today's webinar includes some great speakers, and I'm sure each of you will have valuable takeaways from the experiences and lessons they will share. But before we get to that, let me introduce our moderators, both of whom are active contributors to CANSO's work in this important area. Firstly, Ben Stanley, CEO of First Fruit Services. Ben is the driving force behind Tomorrow's Voices, a joint initiative with CANSO designed to engage the next generation and foster a more inclusive, future-ready aviation community. And secondly, Marina Muric, the head of Human Resources at Croatia Control and chair of CANSO's Human Resources Work Group, a forum in which we've been having a lot of discussion on exactly these issues. Marina, Ben, over to you both and have a great webinar.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and let me add our welcome to everyone who's joining us from around the world. As Michelle said, this is part of a series. One of the things we're trying to do is address some of the main questions around talent in aviation. It's something that sits almost in the background to our services. We can sometimes lose sight, but of course, when it's not there, we know. When we don't have the personnel we need or the competence we need, it has direct impact. And as I said, for those of you who joined the last webinar, for our executives, it's one of the things that can keep them awake at night, how they find the talent, particularly in this time of growth and change, and perhaps unanticipated change as well. It's a pleasure to be here with Marina. As Michelle said, my name is Ben. First Fruits, you may not know, we are a change management consultancy. We help organizations unlock change. And part of that is looking at where the key pain points are. And of course, as I've just mentioned, that's in talent as well. And so we've just launched Next Gen Insights as a way of looking at that. I'll say a little bit about that later. Marina, if I can hand over to you, and we want to leave plenty of time for our speakers today, so I'll let you carry on.
Thank you, Ben. Hi, everyone. Welcome also from my side to this webinar. I'm happy that this topic of hiring, attracting talent is getting to be a more often topic within HR community, HR experts, and even broader. I'm happy that this is finally a topic that is more and more ongoing between us, as this is a crucial thing that we need to assure enough of candidates for the future needs. I will not be long because we have really, as Michelle said, great presentations today, and I am sure and hope that we will all learn from these examples and that you will get some good outcomes today after the webinar. So I think we can start now with our presentations, and the first presentation will be provided by our colleagues from NAV Canada, Trisha, who is head of brand and marketing communication, and Lynn, who is part of HR as talent manager. So girls, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, and thank you for inviting us, and bonjour à tout le monde. So if we can go to the first slide, please. So I'll just briefly talk about NAV Canada. So we do provide air traffic services across Canada and over the Atlantic. We are a non-for-profit organization, and we're privatized in 1996. We have approximately 5,500 employees across the country in just over 100 sites from coast to coast to coast. Our employees include approximately 2,000 air traffic controllers and approximately 620 flight service specialists. Next slide, please. Our challenge, before COVID, we were hiring approximately 120 students in air traffic services each year. With the changing needs, we are now hiring 450 new students every year, which of course creates a challenge in this labor market. our brand awareness. NAV Canada is a hidden gem in Canada. Not many people know about us unless people are in the aviation industry or have a family member or a friend working at NAV. So with this, with the candidate needs have been changing since COVID. We know that people want to work remotely. With the cost of living, people are not as willing to relocate from one area of the country to another, which has made it such that our talent pool was not meeting our needs. Next slide, please. So after returning to my position in January 23rd, I was leading the NAV Canada COVID response. I was in operation for a one-year assignment. When I came back to my position, one of my key priorities was to develop a recruitment strategy. And really what we were looking at was how do we remove barriers for potential candidates to come to NAV Canada financially. So we introduced some changes in that respect. But what we really needed to do was to bring the awareness and attract people to NAV Canada. So it was to create a narrative really where people would resonate with our mission and our values. It was an integrated connection strategy, so really focusing on paid media campaigns to attract the right candidate to NAV Canada, and creating really a very captivating creative, which we will show you in a minute, to attract people that may not have any interest before in the aviation industry, which in the long run would increase our brand awareness. Next slide, please. So with this, you see here that our talent pool pre-COVID was approximately 11,000 candidates, and that was to fill approximately 120 or so training seats. As we moved along in 2023, the number of candidates remained the same, but our training requirements were more. So at that time in 23, we were hiring approximately 250 students. And then in 2024, we were moving to 450 students. So we definitely needed to increase our talent pool. And here you can see that from 23 to 24, with what we put in place, we increased our talent pool to over 31,000 candidates, sorry. And in 2025, in the first 3 months alone, we have over 15,000 candidates. So lots of brand awareness, lots of marketing that Tricia will talk about. So the solution really is very bold, humorous, a humorous campaign. It wasn't showcasing people. And it was something totally different for NAV Canada. So with that, we will show you a short video of our Goose Recruit campaign. So if you can move to the video, please.
Thank goodness for subtitles.
Yeah, there's no sound. I would encourage people to watch the video afterwards with the sound.
So while we're transferring back over to the main slide deck, hopefully through the subtitles, you got a sense of the puns that were included in the ad. The music was quite quirky, and you'll see that we had geese as our Goose recruits. And so if we could move a few slides ahead, to the, we'll keep going, another one. This slide's perfect for now. And so you'll probably be wondering, what on earth do geese have in common with doing recruitment marketing? We gave you our solution up front. So what we could do is walk you through the 5 marketing trends that let us know that we were on the right track. So I'll introduce you to trend number 1 right now, and that'll be featured on the next slide. And these are all Canadian trends, but they definitely have applicability in the North American market and likely probably globally. So trend number 1 is something that's absolutely non-negotiable, and that's good data. As Lynn mentioned, when we came out of COVID and we had this substantial increase in the need for a talent pool, we realized that we didn't really have good data. We had to start from scratch. And what that meant is a 4-month build period whereby we got information about individuals coming to our website, individuals applying, and then success rates. And ultimately, we spent that time building good data so that when we did our buy and when we created creative, we had a really good understanding of who our target was, which we knew was different than individuals that were referred and already familiar with the aviation market. And we also needed to understand their digital behavior. Where do they hang out? Where do they play? Where do we need to place ads? And so with all of that, we had a really good understanding of who our target market was. So that's trend number 1. Trend number 2, that's the next slide. The trend number 2 is ultimately that younger audiences take the spotlight. And whilst in recruitment marketing, you cannot target by age, you can certainly target by demographic, by particular behavior. And one of the trends that happened is that the marketing to Gen Z was dropping substantially, and Gen Z was rising substantially. Now you may be thinking, oh, is 2% that big of an increase? And at the time of this data capture, that was the case, but the actual number right now is over 30%. And in Canada, Gen Z is about 10 million folks of the population. They're individuals that are born between 1997 and 2012. And what makes this cohort quite unique is they are the first truly digital savvy generation. And so for us as a company trying to strategize how to reach new candidates and not having had ads in the digital space before, this seemed like a likely cohort that would be a good candidate pool, especially because our brand awareness was lower, and we also need to increase and get folks interested in this career. The other thing about this generation is that social consciousness is very important to them. And so therefore safety and companies with higher purpose are attractive employers. And then they're also very much a very pragmatic generation. And so when you look at companies that offer various support systems and are very into work-life balance, those types of companies become quite an attractive employer for this cohort. That then formed our target market. Trend number 3. So we'll move to the next slide, please. So brand first marketing is so back. We've mentioned a couple times now that in Canada, we like to say that NAV Canada is the best unknown company. And in the B2B space, of course, in aviation, we're quite well known, but to the average citizen, not so much. And so when you look at aviation style recruitment ads in Canada, people, testimonial, there's a formula that works well to connect and to attract individuals. We knew that we needed to break through that clutter. We also knew that there are cultural zeitgeists and icons in the Canadian space, and the Canadian goose is definitely one of them. And mascots work very well. Banks, for example, have penguins. There are wine companies that have raccoons. This is a trend that definitely works in the Canadian market. And so we knew we needed to explore the mascot approach. And it was really all about breaking through clutter and getting people to think, my gosh, why is there geese on that ad? Trend number 4. And that's our next slide. And this is really around visual storytelling. Now, I've just showed you a video, as has Lynn, and some images of geese and our goose recruits. We also know that there is an important place in the recruiting space for what we'll call more traditional style ads, and you see them depicted here. In the channels of Instagram, for example, Indeed, Facebook, LinkedIn, motion does very well at capturing attention. You'll probably later you'll scroll and you'll see the static ads, and then things with motion you'll gravitate and draw more attention to. And so we did that. It's the simple fix of telling a story differently and adding motion into that. And from here we found a big difference in our traffic to our website. We used to get in the vicinity of about 4,000 views a month to our careers page from Facebook and LinkedIn. And as soon as we started adding motion, that number jumped to over 30,000. So definitely capturing attention and doing so via motion and telling a visual story, we knew was going to be a good approach for us. Trend number 5 that we tapped into, and this here is niche influencers lead the change. It's not just about digital ads. It's not just about telling stories. You have to get help and people to do so. Now, whilst we had Gabe and Alice, our goose recruits, combing the country and having really fun, playful ads, which did very well for us, we also knew that the people component was very important. And so we partnered with pilots and we partnered with influencers through social channels to help us spread the words. And we took notice of this trend, and something that we hadn't done before as well. And this actually allowed us to connect in with different local audiences and help fill seats for information sessions. And so if you think back to the multi-prong approach that Lynn has shared, and we can pop to the next slide now, please, you'll notice that awareness, attraction, and many different facets of a marketing campaign all go into capturing attention. And so whilst our Gabe here was looking for new candidates, we also know that it is a bigger picture of that. So that gives you a snapshot into how we approached being bold and giving us the courage to do something different for us. And with that, I shall pass the floor back.
Thank you so much, Tricia. Brilliant to hear. People are flocking to Nav Canada. See, I can do it as well.
Yes, flocking, fabulous.
Yeah, there you go. But I was struck by your first slide there. That's the first trend, that data is non-negotiable. So true. We exist often by anecdotes, and it's actually the power of validated data in shaping our behaviours that is massively important. So huge kudos to you guys in that. I mean, one of the things later on, hopefully we'll get some questions on, okay, how do you even start? Because evidently it's a big world out there, yeah, where do you start on that? So really, yeah, thank you for sharing. We'll probably put the link to the video, the YouTube, either in the follow-up email or in the chat for people, so that people can have a watch with the quirky tune as well.
Yes.
I've got 2 Ben Stanleys. This is it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker now. Sorry, I've just muted suddenly. Who is Marina Moric. Marina's a good friend and Croatia Control, good friends of ours. She's head of human resources there in working out how to shape the future talent, as Croatia has dealt with quite some traffic increase over the last few years and continue to forecast an amount there. Marina is also the chair of the CANSO HR working group, and therefore sits well with the other ANSPs in understanding some of the trends that are coming through here. Marina, let me hand over to you.
Thank you, Ben. You made a really nice introduction, and thank you for this. Yes, we are having a big increase in traffic, and the demands for hiring is really huge. So yeah, we have a bit of a challenge. So we can go start with the slides, please. As everyone else here, and as we heard also from Now Canada, we had a challenge for some years already in increasing the number of candidates who apply for our jobs, specifically for ATCO students. And we figured out that it's not only enough just to put a vacancy for open vacancy place on as an ad on internet. There should be something much more done, and the expectations have changed from the candidates. As we all know, the new generations are coming in, and the expectations that candidates have from 10 years ago and now are very different. Even though we have an attractive job with great benefits, still it's not enough just to put an ad and wait for the candidates. So if we go further with the slide, we figured out, actually we knew that we need to create something more. And we needed to find out a way of how do we talk to outside and how do we talk to potential candidates about who we are. We knew that we need to create a so-called employer branding strategy that answers the question of why should a talented and experienced person want to work at Croatia Control. So the job as a title is known outside, but not we as employer, who we are, what we offer to the outside world. Those stories should be somehow packed in some way, and we need to start talking to outside candidates in a different way that we did before. So developing employer branding strategy is a complex and long process, and I will try to make it short here in the couple of slides, just to explain what we did. So it all starts on the next slide. You can see with creating employee value pillars, which are actually a center of everything that follows in the process of employer positioning. And for us, we through the workshops that we did with our employers, with our employees, new ones, the ones that are here for a longer time, we came out with 3 pillars for us, which represent uniqueness. We have unique job here and expertise as a second one, which is showing that this is a specific job with the specific skills and expertise needed, and security, how we offer security, but on the other side, we also offer the secure job. After creating those 3 pillars, the next step is creating employee value proposition, which you can see on the next slide. I'm showing just a short version of what employee value proposition is. It is showing what a company has to offer to its employees and also what employees want to have from employer. This is like a general rule. And the result of creating employee value proposition is a longer statement, like text, which is showing in a couple of sentences who we are, what we do, what can anyone who starts working here with us, what they can find here, how we live here, what we do, what are our core values. It's a little bit longer text, and for those who are interested to see it, we have it on our Croatia Control web pages that can be easily found. So I didn't put them here, but it's something that you can really search and see. So this was followed in order to be somehow recognizable, and for candidates, whenever we communicate to outside, we needed to have something that is related to us, that someone who sees our ad, any kind of communication that can relate and say, okay, so this is Croatia Control, because we didn't have this before. The slogan that we created for this purpose, for communicating to potential candidates, is something what I show on the next slide, please. This is in Croatian, tvoje mjesto pod nebom. It's hard to, of course, translate it in English that can be related, but it's something like your place in the sun. So we used we played a little bit with the words and the job that controllers do. So we are working with the sky, and we use this blue color underneath in all our visuals that will be also shown later to show that our company may not be for everyone, but is definitely for those who want to pursue their careers here in in having the responsible job. And whoever comes here, they will find their place in the sun, so under the sky, and they will be happy here, and this is where they will want to belong in the future. On the next slide, I will show you here how we continued with creating a visual identity. So this part was showing the story that we wanted to tell outside and the short slogan of who we are, how candidates can relate. Regarding the visual identity, on the next 2 slides, you can see just shortly how this correlated in terms of showing it to the outside. So these are some of the examples of billboards and how it looks on mobile phone when matching it with on LinkedIn posts. And on the next slide, also how it looks when we are posting on Facebook, also this Facebook background. And on the right side, you see the example of our vacancy ad, which is placed on the web. So this was the creation of our employer branding strategy in general. The next thing I wanted to show you how we then integrated it with our recruitment campaign, because this layout shown already so far we use for our materials that we use also for job fairs on universities, for promotional things also. But when it comes to recruiting, this was blended, and in our recruiting campaign that we have recently now for a couple of last years, we integrated this employer branding strategy with the communication for the recruiting, for attracting new candidates. So on the next slide, you can see we have a slogan in communication when putting a vacancy ad outside, which is "It's time for a new level." Again, this is something that correlates to controllers and their terminology. The next slide, please. So "It's time for a new level" is combined because we are attracting people who are ready for a new level of responsibility. So this new level of responsibility, having something new for them, connected with the wording of levels that controllers do. We played here a little bit with the words. On the next slide, you can see how we combined the slogan that we have from employer branding strategy with this "It's time for a new level." And this is how it looked, for example, in our last campaign. We had shooting with our own employees. And here you can see the background is blue, which we have as our general employer branding colors. And this is in creation, "It's time for a new level." And the persons that you can see here, those are all our controllers, or some of them are even the students, so ATCO students on Tower or in ACC. So we wanted to have authenticity here and to show real people, even though, of course, nobody knows this outside, but for our internal employees, it was also crucial that they're part of it. So we blended internal engagement with having it shown to outside. On the next slide, you can see how we combined different channels of communication when in our last recruiting campaigns. So we had posts on social networks, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, the usual ones. Also, we had some marketing there. Google Ads. We introduced also city lights on specific places in front of universities. So we have a lot of young people gravitating to catch their attention. In the last recruiting campaign, we had a radio commercial which lasted for 1 month. And this proved to be very good because we had a lot of candidates telling us that they heard our commercial on radio while driving, and not only them, but also parents, grandparents, talking then to their children to say, I heard this over the radio. And they told them about this. And this really, so as we were following the number of applications, we saw that once the radio commercial was on air, there was a higher increase of applications. And local newspaper, which somehow could be strange to see here, but when we are searching for controllers for towers, we had info from local employees that it would be good to have an ad in newspapers, because a lot of people in local smaller communities read newspapers, and also then they tell to their neighbors, to their kids, grandchildren, and so on about the job vacancy. So there is a different mix of communication channels where we communicate, and there are some always a challenging process going on within ourselves to see whether maybe next time we should add something more, to see if it works or it doesn't work. I think this process is also very important, to see if something doesn't work, then we change it and implement something new, or we add something new and see what would work. And for the last slide, I put just a short summary. Oh, sorry, these are the numbers, actually the figures of how our efforts in what I just said, how it paid off, because all of this brought really a higher increase of applicants in the last years. So this year we had by 100% higher number of applicants compared to the year before, and also the year before it was increased by 100%, which for us proves that there is a result in having all these small changes and efforts in communication, in constant pushing the same message, the message that candidates outside can get familiar with. For some time, we didn't have the slogans that I was telling about, and now we are familiar with, when we put out an ad, they know, aha, okay, so this is Croatia Control, they're searching for controllers. Now we are getting more into their minds and knowing that this consistency is something that they can really remember. And for the last slide, I just wanted to repeat in maybe a short couple of steps for us what it meant, that employer branding strategy was really something that was a missing piece and is a base to start everything afterwards. So the first step was defining the identity, the employer brand, then translating specific into the employer value statement, slogan, and communication elements. And after it, developing basic communication materials and activities which can then enable the candidate attraction. So this was all from our case. I hope it was informative enough, and I hope it will help someone, maybe just with some small parts of it, to have to get implemented in your own cases and help get more candidates. So with this, we will now continue with our next speakers. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to now introduce our next presenters. So we're having Nuts here with their case and their examples. So we have Jody and Helen, and I hope Helen made her way to be able to present. So Jody is Director of Operations Training at Nuts, and Helen, Head of Talent and HR Services. So we are about to hear theirs. Oh, so you're both there. Great. Okay, so we will be happy to hear now your story.
Thank you, and hello to everyone who's been able to join the call today. There's a bit of touch and go in the background. Apologies, I've just had to dash over to Jody here because the technology didn't work. So, hi, I'm Helen Fuge. I'm Head of Talent and HR Services.
And I'm Jody McMenamin, Director of Operations Training with NATS.
So what we'd like to do is give you a little bit of an overview of our processes at the moment, more detail on our assessment methodology, and then also talk about our training as well. So if I could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So first I'm going to start by talking about our attraction, and there's been lots of conversation already today in terms of the different methods that can be utilised and have been utilised to try and attract people into the occupation. So to the next slide, please. One of the areas that we're really trying to look at from that perspective is actually a little bit unlike some of our other peers here today in terms of actually really thinking about moving away from a localised recruitment campaign and considering how far we can reach from a national perspective. But also linked in with that as well, what we're really trying to drive is a broader diversity in our demographic of applicant as well. Historically, we've always done well white male applicants. What we're keen to do is to really highlight this occupation to all, and to think about how we can encourage more diversity, most specifically with female representation and also ethnic minority representation. So what you can see on the screen are a few examples as to how we've done that, and what I'll also talk about is some of the partnerships that we have as an organisation. So first of all, what you can see is we're trying to do a little bit more ourselves in terms of sort of webinar series and podcasts. So the first picture you can see on the screen there is where we actually interview current trainees and current female controllers. This was very much a drive to encourage more women into the occupation, and we shared that on channel. What we also do is really hone in on our social media coverage, thinking about channels such as LinkedIn, Instagram, also thinking about where we can broaden for the younger demographic, which I think is really important, and thinking about how we can expand that reach. We're also very conscious, though, that our brand is not sufficient enough to do that far-reaching marketing for us. So the other area that we've really relied on is, let me just move a bit closer, hopefully that you can hear me a little bit better now. The other area that we rely on is thinking about our partnerships. So one example you can see here on the screen, an organisation called Elevate Her, which again is focusing on encouraging women into the aviation industry. But we also partner with Fantasy Wings, an organisation supporting those from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds into the aviation sector, and also consider the job boards and the portals that we're utilising again to broaden our outreach. So that looks at everything from the university job pages through to the CEDA, which is an inclusive jobs portal, and thinking about all of the channels that we can access that really does give us national coverage from a campaign perspective. So like many that we're hearing on the call today, the most important thing is that we stay current and we don't rest on our laurels in terms of the techniques that we're using. If I could have the next slide, please. Now I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in terms of our selection. And our selection has been designed in a way that we can move candidates through at pace, but also has moved to a fully remote method, again, to enable us to be able to move efficiently and cost effectively through our process. Next slide, please. So the first phase of our assessment is candidates are invited to undertake ability tests, which I'll come on to in a little bit more detail in a moment. If they pass all of those ability tests, they are then invited to undertake a situational judgment test and personality profiling, which again, as we move through these slides, I'll go into in more detail. And then finally, we invite them to a virtual assessment centre. And again, all of that currently is delivered by Microsoft Teams to enable us to consider how we can get the broadest reach to our candidate pool, but also to encourage social mobility in terms of those that potentially could not afford to come on site. Jodie will talk a little bit later about some other initiatives to really think about social mobility in the applicants that are applying to us. Next slide, please. So in terms of the stage 1 ability tests, there are 9 ability tests that the candidates are asked to undertake. They usually take up to 75 minutes for the candidates to complete these. I won't read them all out, so you can see them on the screen. But if the candidate undertakes these tests and passes all 9, they can actually proceed to the second stage of our assessment on the same day. So again, thinking about efficiencies and thinking about how we can move through that recruitment process, really trying to look at maximising that for the candidates. Next slide, please. Stage 2 is split into 2 components. So firstly, situational judgment tests, and this is where we have worked with our Air Traffic Control College to think about specific scenarios where judgment is required, but non-technical judgment is required. There are 17 different scenarios, each with 4 response options, and rate their options. In order to progress through to the final stage, they need to pass the SJTs. On the other side, however, is the personality questionnaire. Now, this isn't a pass-fail, this is very much looking at the personality traits of the candidates that are applying. The personality questionnaire enables us to highlight any areas that we would deem as risk areas. So when we move to stage 3, we then adapt the questions for the individual based on those components that are highlighted as risk. So each interview that is undertaken will be customised based on the individual and their personality questionnaire. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then finally, the candidates are invited to stage 3, which is our virtual assessment. So we aim for, in all of our assessments, 12 candidates, ideally, because we are in a very fortunate position, I would say, at NATS, that actually one thing that we don't struggle to do is to attract the volume. So if I look at applicant numbers, we went live in 2024 for a very short window. We had over 4,000 within a couple of days. We get very, very high numbers looking to apply to become air traffic controllers. But obviously what's really important is to that cool down to those who go on and be successful as trainees. So we run the stage 3 assessment looking at some key elements. One is an interview that looks at technical competency, but also those elements that I highlighted already. We do a reset of the 6 tests from stage 1, again, just to ensure that we have the same candidate in front of us and we qualify. They're also asked to do an air traffic control knowledge test and a group discussion exercise. Next slide, please. I won't go into too much detail on this because this is more the process side, but what I wanted to highlight here from the interview perspective is you will see the key measures that we're looking at here. So in terms of the areas that we're looking at in terms of rating, it's very much centred on tenacity and dealing with setbacks, the individual's proactive approach to learning, how they're able to be conscientious and think about knowledge, and also about being those measures are tested the whole way through our process. Next slide, please. The group discussion, again, you'll see in terms of the measures, we're focusing on those that are most relevant through that exercise. Now, our group discussions are not designed to get the right answer from the candidates. They're designed to really look to see how an individual is able to influence, how they're able to be decisive, how they can make decisions and problem solve with data, and how they can work as a team as well. So trying to think of the core competencies working with our college in terms of those that are required to be a controller. So that gives you a little bit of a flavour of how we take candidates through the process and also how we go to market as well from an NATS perspective. I'll now hand over to Jodie, who can talk you through what then happens when they are here and they're live.
Thanks, Helen. So next slide, please, and next slide again, actually, will be fine, thanks. Okay, so we are finding, as Helen said, that we do get a strong number of applicants every time that we open our window to recruit. But what we are beginning to experience is more people who are struggling throughout that process for a number of reasons. So we see people who have got financial concerns that maybe we haven't seen quite as much of in the past. So one thing that we've introduced is a bursary scheme to support candidates with the medical costs associated with getting a Class 3 medical before they come to join us. So candidates can ask for that help should they need it before they join us. And then we start with early contact from our welfare team. So before people join, about 6 weeks before they join us, our welfare team will call them talk to them about any concerns they might have regarding accommodation or any support that they might need, because often they're moving from another part of the country. Often it might be the first time that they've lived away from home. So we try to get all the students together early on in WhatsApp groups to build up a sort of rapport and cohort communication, and that allows us to then impart some information about the local area and just help to soften that transfer for individuals who are moving from different parts of the country. Our students then, when they join us at NATS, will all come together in our corporate centre for an induction programme. So that induction programme doesn't just explain to them what will be expected of them throughout their air traffic controller training, but gives them a much broader understanding of who NATS are as an organisation, what our values are, the expected behaviours that we have of them as individuals, the support that we will have in place for them. So we would have all sorts of sessions within that induction programme that will look at human factors. We look at how we start to build their resilience. We do group coaching with them. So right from the outset, we're trying to put in place as much support as we possibly can for our learners. In 2023, NATS turned its air traffic controller training into a level 5 apprenticeship. So that now means that when students join us, as well as working towards their student air traffic controller licence, they're also working towards a nationally recognised qualification. And with the introduction of that apprenticeship, we've seen a lot more support. It's a lot more about the individual as a whole and not just about the technical air traffic controlling skills that they might need. And as I say, we've embedded that HF support right from day one. Next slide, please. So the apprenticeship has had many benefits for us. It has most certainly broadened our recruitment pool, so we can now advertise on a national government apprenticeship portal. That means if any young person in the UK is searching for an apprenticeship to do, that NATS air traffic control apprenticeship will be listed there. We're trying to make sure that we attract people from all sorts of different backgrounds. Our academic qualification minima is quite low, so it's the sort of age 16 level qualifications in the UK would be the academic minima. So we're trying to make sure that we attract people from all different walks of life, and certainly when you walk around our ops rooms in NATS today, you will meet air traffic controllers there who absolutely do come from all walks of life. So we want to make sure that we continue to do that, and the apprenticeship certainly allowed us to do that. We then moved to much more of a standardised approach to our learning and assessment process. So we're using a lot more teaching skills. So up until probably a couple of years ago, the Air Traffic Control College, and that was run entirely by air traffic controllers. We didn't have a lot of formal teaching qualifications within the team, and our approach to teaching and learning in the college was very heavily focused around that technical air traffic controller skill. But now we've been able to broaden that to ensure that we are getting a much deeper level of understanding from our students. We're also, from an apprenticeship perspective, really focused on individuals and individual learning needs. So it's tricky working with our regulator. Obviously, we have to ensure that we deliver a very standard approach to our course and make sure that our learners all experience the same thing. But what we all know is that learners learn differently. They learn in different ways. They learn at different paces. Different parts of the curriculum pose different problems for our learners. So what the apprenticeship has enabled us to do is to think about the person as a whole, individualise some of that learning to be really focused around what the learner needs and when they need it, and to work with them on how they can learn best. And then obviously there is a financial benefit for NATS as well, in terms of being able to draw down from a government apprenticeship levy. And that investment has allowed us to look at the courses that we deliver, to make sure that we give people as much time as we possibly can in the simulator, that again, we don't just think about their technical air traffic control skills, but we develop their personal resilience, their ability to work as a team. So ultimately, all of those things together, we hope will start to see an increase in our success rate, including our first time pass rate. So that's really important to us. Our college just now is a real steep learning curve for our learners, and we have high pass rates, high ultimate success rates from our college at around about 90%, but our first time pass rates are more around the sort of 60 to 65%. So we're really looking at how do we make sure that we can have a broad programme that mops everyone up and ensures that everyone gets to that same standard by the end of the course. And then we're looking at how we can use it to shorten our live training time as well. So our students spend quite a lot of time after they've finished at our college in live training time. That can be anything between sort of 6 to 9 months at a small regional airport, and it can be up to almost 2 years in some of our busier centre sectors. So one thing that NATS has done that has really helped us look at that end-to-end training pipeline is we've put together all the different training teams into one end-to-end training organisation. So I have got an accountability right from the day one of the college all the way through the initial training, the rating training, pre-OJT, OJT training in the live environment, and then all of the training that our controllers do from a continual professional development perspective, and any project training that they might have afterwards. So we're able to look at that full end-to-end training pipeline and the changes that we've made and the benefits that we're beginning to see are enabling us to ensure that we can put as many people through that training pipeline as possible in the shortest amount of time. Next slide, please. And that is all from us. If you do have any questions for us, you can pop them in the chat and we'll come to it in the Q&A. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Helen and Jodie, and well done on both being able to be with us. There was some last minute adjustment there, and apologies for any drop in the sound quality occasionally. Really interesting to see how you wove through that presentation without actually having a set of slides that said diversity, diversity, diversity. It was actually inherent right the way through, and it was showing the mutual benefit of diversity of gender, of social mobility, of ethnicity, and how it actually impacts NATS and the performance of your talent management. So really interesting to hear, and hopefully our audience will pick up that more. As Jodie just mentioned, do put your questions into the chat. Don't be afraid. We will be able to have a look at those and start a conversation. Use this opportunity to explore how people are getting noticed, how they're attracting a new generation in new ways. So thank you so much, both of you. Our final speaker, before we move to a Q&A, real pleasure to welcome Mabel Kwan. Mabel is MD of Alton Aviation down in Singapore, but is also Vice President of Women in Aviation Singapore. I was down there last month and heard just a little, of the various things they're doing as they create touch points for the next generation right through the life cycle, right from early stage. So really looking forward to hearing a bit more of that. And Mabel, if I may, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ben. I hope the audio is okay from my side.
Very good.
Well, good evening or good afternoon, good morning to everyone who's joining this. Really very privileged to be here today. You must be wondering, right? I'm not from an ANSP. I'm not from HR. What do I have to share with you? I hope that I can share a little bit of a different perspective from outside in, because you know, the brand ambassador for a company shouldn't just be the marketing person or the HR person. It can actually be anyone, and this is our way of showing you and how we can be also pretty effective in doing so. So a little bit about women in aviation. Next slide, please. If you're not familiar with this organization, it's actually formed. We are very, very young. We are like a little bit of a startup, but we are a startup with big ambitions, right? This organization is a non-profit organization. We started in the midst of COVID, out of the need for the industry. Because as you know, as we go through COVID, there were lots of talent who left the industry. And from the Singapore perspective, as traffic was picking up, we were a little bit struggling, right, to see how we can backfill some of these jobs that were left vacant now that traffic's picking up. If you know, the aviation industry, especially in Asia Pac, will be a big driver, a big growth driver to the overall growth in aviation. We are looking at 4 to 5% growth. And if you just calculate mathematically, the population of Singapore is not going to grow more than 2%, right? So there is a big shortfall, and we have to think about different ways of filling this gap. And one of the ways is how you would do differently is to attract and retain and develop female talent to come into the industry. So this was how Women in Aviation was formed. We aim to connect, engage, and inspire. Next slide, please. So connect means we want to be a networking platform to connect people. Next slide. Next slide, please. Engage is being able to capture, right, the awareness early and entice and encourage more women and young women to join the industry. Next slide, please. And through that, we hope to inspire more women in leadership positions, and also to stay and realize a fulfilling, exciting career in aviation. Next slide, please. I'll talk a little bit about how we drive this non-profit organization. Next slide, please. I think it's very important to note that this is a 100% volunteer-led organization. And what is so important about this is that, you know, it's a group of very passionate people. The greatest PR campaign will be one from your friends, you know, someone you know telling you, hey, this particular industry is one you can join, or this particular company, you know, in this case, you know, CAS, right, is an organization that should definitely consider. So this word of mouth, this endorsement by people from within the industry is the most powerful. And with this group of individuals, you know, spearheading these initiatives, it sends a very powerful message, right, to the rest of the community. Next slide, please. We have over 100 strong members. So we formed about 4 years. We have over 100 members, and you will see later on, you know, we harness the strength of not just individual members, but also corporate partners from within this industry. I'll share a little bit of why this is also important. Next slide, please. You know, Ben mentioned that, you know, we create touch points. Now, why I wanted to go through some of the programs is this is the key way in which we promote and create awareness of the aviation industry, including, right, CAS, who's one of our key stakeholders in Singapore. It is very intentional on our part, right, that we want to create touch points across the journey of women in this case, right, throughout her journey in aviation. So from the time before she decides to join the industry to when she just joins the industry and to when she wants to develop into a senior leadership role in the industry. I'll walk you through a little bit of the intentionality behind some of these programs, which hopefully can give you a little bit of insights or inspiration into how you can maybe create that awareness and encouragement for your organizations as well. Next slide, please. So one of the key mission for us is actually outreach. In this event that we have is called Girls in Aviation Day. It is a strong belief of ours that you have to create awareness very early. Because, for example, once they decide that they want to study law, it is very difficult for them to change paths right after the study, to say, I want to join an NSP, or I want to join the aviation industry. So that awareness has to be created very, very early on. In this Girls in Aviation Day, this is our 4th year running it, right? There is a growing interest. Started from like 30 girls in year 1, and last year we had 300 girls joining us on this day. What is very unique is that the organizations within the Singapore aviation industry, CAAS included, they set up booths during this day and talk about what makes them work in aviation. Why you should pursue careers in aviation, and just getting the girls right from age 7 to, in this case, 16, very much interested in and becoming aware of the different types of roles within aviation. And from the ANSP side, we had role models coming on stage to share about their journey. We had someone from who's a pilot come on stage, right, share about this journey that they have, and this awareness will bring the girls, will see the girls through the formative years. We also purposely invited parents to this event, so every girl had to bring along one of her parents, because it is very important. When we were young, all of us, we do take a lot of advice from our parents, and if the parents are on board and supportive of the decision, it is usually a much easier route to take for young girls. So we want to make sure that we get the parents aware of this industry and aware of roles such as air traffic controllers. Next slide, please. So when the girls decide that, hey, I want to study STEM, I want to study an aviation related course, I want to study a course to allow me to become air traffic controller, what we do is we provide that ability to recognize talented individuals who want to choose this path. And more than just financial assistance, what we provide is the ability through the organization and through the partners within our organization, the ability to network, right? To understand even deeper, even before she enters into a role within the industry. So we have a scholarship program that we award 1 scholar every year. Next slide, please. And so if you see, we had a Girls in Aviation Day. It is targeted at very young girls. We now have last year just done our inaugural Gen Z Career in Aviation Day. This is very targeted at the Gen Z at the stage point, at the point of their journey in which they are making a conscious decision whether or not, right, to enter into the industry. So, and I think some of the presenters earlier alluded to a different way of thinking and a different way of marketing to some of these Gen Zs. So we recognize that there has to be something that is more tailored to the profile of the Gen Zs in this regard. And so we started this Career in Aviation Day. What is very different is that is it something that you just want to be like any other career fair? We want it to be a little different and be very, very targeted. So what we've done is to ask all the companies to come to the career fair with 5 roles that are open, that the candidates they actually sign on the spot. So from CAS perspective, they came in with open roles, both internships as well as entry-level roles, right? Where the students who are interested can actually sign up on the spot. And I'm pleased to say that actually the feedback from CAS was also very positive. They actually had quite a few interns who joined them after this career fair. So great success, inaugural event attended by over 300 participants, out of which there are more than 50% of them were females, which is very, very unusual for a aerospace career event in Singapore. Next slide, please. So this mentorship program, so the last few programs was before they decide to join the industry. So this particular touch point on the mentorship program is after they join the industry. I think it is very important that besides an attraction, there is an ability to develop and retain. So this mentorship program is unique in the sense that we pair up mentors and mentees from across organizations, and intentionally so, because we want to give them a safe environment, give the mentees a safe environment to share challenges at work, and for the mentors to be able to, advise from an outside-in perspective, and also based on experience and it's a safe environment for both to share. This program is really targeted at young executives who are unsure, especially it's targeted for females as well, who are unsure of how they can grow and develop. And this gives them an added kind of support that they can rely on outside of the organization. Next slide, please. Now, I think at the gala dinner is more than just a fundraising for us. For us, it's a celebration of success. It is very important that we showcase success stories of air traffic controllers, female air traffic controllers. And in the last gala dinner, we had this event attended by the Minister of Transport himself, right, which shows the level of support and right across the various levels within the industry, from government to regulator to private sectors, and we are all in unison, right, in calling for a talent development, calling for more females to join the industry. So we had a MOU that was signed with CAS. The MOU is for 5 years, and we are happy to support CAS, right, in tapping on this pool of talent that is female. We're also very, very fortunate to have the support in allowing us to spread our message, right, through a wider outreach programs. So this is the you can see here, this was from last year. But I think what is also very important is that to celebrate the success stories of the industry and showcase the role models. Next slide, please. Next slide. So you can see, we not only have CAS with us. It is important to send a very unified message and a show of solidarity, in the sense that everyone, right, recognizes the need within the industry to attract more talent, and also to attract more female talent into the industry. So you can see, we are pretty much having the support of most of the major aviation companies, and that is very important because the message becomes clearer when everyone sends out the consistent message. Next slide, please. So some of the events that helps to create that awareness, creates a sort of a marketing, right, efforts as well for jobs within the industry, will be seminars that we hold in schools, company visits for students. We have International Women's Day, where there are panel speakers as well. We participate in industry events whereby we talk about the talent and the recruitment needs of the industry and how we tackle around them, sharing experiences and sharing tips. We also have, career fairs, as I mentioned earlier, and also from a network perspective, from senior leaders, we constantly have networking opportunities to allow them to develop and have a network that they can rely on, they can go to in times of, if there are any questions that they have in the course of their work. Next slide, please. So I think throughout, you see snippets of these four approaches showing through the events and the efforts that we have. It has to be very intentional, milestone driven, touch points driven. Early awareness is something that we really advocate, because if they already have a path already chosen, it's difficult to change that path. Ecosystem approach, whereby from regulator to companies to governments, we are all united, right, in the message that we want to convey, and the importance of talent development within the aviation industry, within the ANSPs. And lastly, celebrating success to spread awareness, to amplify the marketing efforts with successful role models who can speak on behalf of the industry. Next slide, please. And thank you, everyone. I'm sure you have questions, and I'll hand it over to the moderators to have some questions out for us. Thanks.
That's fantastic, Mabel. Thank you so much. And I mean, really interesting to see what can be done with a horizontal cross-cutting approach. It's something that came up in the first webinar that we were running, where our guest speakers from outside the industry referred to this kind of approach and how it helps in generating awareness, in connecting the dots far better. One of the questions we got, thank you to everyone who's been sending in questions, please keep them coming. One of the questions we got, actually, I'm just as other panelists join us now for Q&A, was so recognizing that aviation has a number of different careers open to it. We, CANSO here and online, we have ANSPs. Do you think that it's enough to go through STEM and, let's say, more general aviation outreach, or do you think air traffic management needs its own specific channels as well? What's your feeling from what you've seen down in Singapore, and then maybe we'll open it out.
I think using a wider channel helps amplify the message. When you go to when you promote ANSPs alone, it's very targeted, right? You're targeting say a pool of students, but if you work with the other ecosystem stakeholders, there is that general messaging from the aviation industry that you want to send out. And of course, right, from an ASV perspective, maybe for marketing towards the prospective, the real prospective candidates, you need a more targeted message. But to create that awareness, I think it has to be a general ecosystem approach. I think that worked for Singapore.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that from any other countries represented amongst our panelists?
I think we'd agree. I think where ATM is not always a career that's well known, those that know about it know, and the others generally don't have that knowledge. I think looking at the more general elements of advertising selection, about how we can attract is really important. Careers advice and guidance won't go into a huge amount of information with regards to specific occupations in the aviation sector. So I think if we just relied on STEM and aviation and didn't consider how we promoted ATM, I think it's a risk. You've got to be very general with your approach to be able to capture a broad audience.
Yeah, No, thank you. Helen, when you speak, we're going to need to move you a little bit closer. For some reason, the mic seems to cut anything off about 30 centimeters away from it. So thank you. Anyone else to chip in there, or I'll hand over to Marina?
Well, if no one else has something to say on this topic, which was really interesting, and thank you, Mabel, for your presentation, I would continue with one question that really relates, I think, to everyone, and it's really interesting one. I don't know if we have an answer to it, but we'll try to cope with this. How or are careers and roles in aviation changing to meet the next generation? I think this is a great question because we might maybe change it, but maybe not fast enough. So are we really adapting that quickly? Because we all know a lot about new generations coming in. I think we have a lot of insights, but could someone maybe show or share are the roles within the company changing along with the new generations and their needs and expectations?
From a case study perspective, I think what we've seen more broadly in careers across NATS is there are a series of roles where you can look at flexibility and you're able to consider what your generations might want from a work proposition perspective. So if I give an example, things like our graduate scheme can be far more flexible now in terms of how we deliver it. We were talking actually off camera, and actually one of the biggest constraints that's going to be there, and it's very difficult to find a way around actually, is how do you apply that same level of agility and flexibility for individuals that are operational, especially at a time where we have resource constraints. If we think about the aging workforce, and we think about obviously all of us here trying to bring in those younger generations to look at our pipeline for the future, I think it's a really, really challenging question to look at that across roles in aviation as a whole as we currently stand. And my honest answer is I think technology is going to be one of the key elements that will adjust what working could look like in the future, and I don't think we're there yet, but that's my opinion.
Does anyone else have something to share this? Because Ben, if I may continue, this leads me to the next question which we received. I have a feeling that IT industries have this much better option of more quickly adapting to new generations, and this is what they are doing. They don't have the same legacy, not the same ownership as NSPs. Maybe they're smaller companies and privately owned, so they have this luxury of changing the jobs much easily. But we also have IT and technicians and ATM within our companies that we need to employ, so we also have the same issue. And we have this question related to this. So do you have any specific tips on how to attract more candidates for ATM, so for technical personnel? The problem here is that there is much higher competition between IT companies compared to ATCOs. And this is true. We are hiring in some level the same employees, but we are competing with different kind of companies. Maybe now, Canada, how is your experience with having ATM?
For the technology, so I would say targeting colleges and universities and demonstrating the career growth that someone can have over the course of their careers. I think that is the biggest benefit from our end that we're seeing, and that people are joining NAV Canada because they can see their career growth as a result.
Oh, great, thanks. Also, one question from NAV Canada, and I had the same question in my mind, is related to what was response related to your advertising campaign, of course, because it really is something different. So what was the response of existing ATC to the use of humor in your marketing? And are you noticing any differences in the students once they enter the training?
So I would say that, of course, there were some that were not necessarily in favor of the Goose recruits, but what we did is we have a group that's called the Shadow Board. So it's a group of employees from across the organization. So we ran the idea by them. So they gave us feedback as to words to use or not to use in terms of how it would reflect. But I would say overall it was well accepted. Of course, we had to address the safety concern because bird strikes are not something that we want to see. So we addressed that. And for those who will maybe listen to the videos, you'll see the safety aspect that's reflected in our videos. The other thing is that we messaged it that we're not there to attract people necessarily, like the Goose Recruit was not meant to necessarily attract people in the aviation industry. It was meant to attract people outside of the aviation industry. So to really get someone to say, what is this all about? And I'm curious and I want to look into it more. And then of course it brings them to our career website, which is more serious and will focus more on what the job is all about. But I would say that I have Gabe with me, and Gabe has been all across the country. There's been many pictures with Gabe. Even recently, we ran a contest to get new taglines or new puns, and we received over 100 of them. So it was well received. Trisha, anything to add?
No, I don't think so. It's fun. It's clearly humorous, and so once the success of them and also the people latched onto that, then we found it was great acceptance, of course. And then Marina, you had a second part to your question, I think.
Yeah. So did you get any feedback or notice a difference from the candidates that entered the training regarding those who saw the commercial and applied for the position?
I would say no, because they still have to get through the rigorous testing and assessment center. So similar to NATS, we have a first online test. Then they come in, for those who pass that, they come in for a 6-hour in-person testing. And once they pass that, then they come in for half a day assessment center. So they still have to go through the rigorous training. Now, are we seeing more candidates fail the first and second test? Absolutely. Because we're seeing more candidates. So it's normal that we would see that. But at the end, the selection of our students has not changed. We still have a very rigorous selection process, and we would not select people that we don't think would be able to pass the training.
I like what you said about grabbing the attention at the first. So this is what you achieved with this commercial. But then once they come to your webpage, they see all the seriousness behind. And this is the fact, actually. You wanted to get more candidates to just see you and have you noticed. And that's a great showcase of how you really managed to do this.
If I can, a question back to you, maybe, Marina, which you're both a speaker and a moderator, so you get some as well. So you presented on EVP, on the value proposition that an employer can use, and in some ways related to the last question, that there's almost the risk of a branding gap between what the organization, or how the organization promotes itself, its personality, and how it actually is as people come in. How did you involve your current employees to be able to ensure that when you were looking at EVP, you closed that gap as far as possible by ensuring the values came from within?
Yeah. So when we started creating those EVP pillars, we made a couple of focus groups with our employees, and we wanted to have as wide group of different employees as possible. Those who just entered the company, those who entered and started with the training sessions. So with employees who are here for a long time, those who are almost to retiring period. Also, there were involved people who are on different hierarchy level in the company. So from specialists, those who work on the payroll, directors, so girls, boys, female, male. So we really made a very important mix of people, and we had a long discussions, and those were driven, focus-driven discussions where we knew exactly how and which questions should be delivered. And in the end, we said we will not create something, we don't want to create something that we're not living and who we are not. So we figured out, okay, we are not that flexible maybe and cool like some new startups and IT companies. We cannot say, come here and, you know, play billiard or PlayStation the whole day. We have gaming rooms and so on. You know, we are kind of serious, and this is what we have to show. This is a problem. You need to attract new young people and then telling them, but we are serious. But we said we cannot hide. We need to say these are our pillars. We are unique, we are special, but this is our some sort of niche. But on the other side, yeah, we are serious, but we are offering secure job. Those pillars came really from our employees. We didn't make something from HR or that, you know, some director said these are our pillars. They really came from a very different mixture of employees. Of course, we are not sure if all 100% of employees are living it right now, but we are working through the communication, through pushing all the same messages throughout the company, that they are all aware that this is who we are, and that's it.
Any other quick thoughts on that from others on the call? No. In which case, I think we're coming close to our wrap-up time in terms of what we're able to do on this call. Really encourage people who have joined online. You can see the folks on the screen here. Please get in touch. You know, share these lessons learned. That was part of this webinar, was that we can tell the stories. It isn't a simple solution. Marina alluded there to the fact that we can promote ourselves in different ways, but ultimately there's a job to do, and there's a safe air traffic service to provide. And in some ways, we don't want the people who are going to be extremely creative and trying out different things and breaking rules. That's not the role. And so how do we bring that together in how we find those who maybe traditionally haven't been those who are passionate about aviation in their youth, but who we need as we move forwards. One of the things we're doing is running a survey on this ahead of Airspace World. We are running a survey on what is passion and why are people passionate as they come into aviation. So in general, people in aviation are extremely passionate. Mabel talked about it earlier with the even within a voluntary setting. It's people who are passionate about the industry, and we did a survey last year. 97% or something are passionate about aviation amongst those who are already here. But what about those who aren't? And we heard from Nav Canada about with your geese in finding those people who aren't and then filtering them in, which is great. We've heard so many good things on this call. We've heard about the importance of data, the importance of that value proposition as an employer, the importance of having cross-cutting activities. You know, there were a few questions that we might not get to that were around, well, how do you do that with your government, for example, or with public institutions? How can you think outside the box that maybe you're a small ANSP? How can you scale up in terms of that awareness building? And we heard as well about diversity and how we can weave that into what we're doing. So thank you so much to all the panelists from CANSO and First Fruits. As we run this series of webinars, we'll probably carry on after Airspace World, which is coming up in May. If you have the slide, CANSO, that you can flash onto the screen. Let me see, is it coming? There we go. Down in Lisbon, in Portugal, in the middle of May, and many of us will be down there, along with 7,000 or 8,000, I guess, as we seek to network and share some of these lessons learned and build up together. We'll be running through that a specific program I just mentioned called Tomorrow's Voices, which will be focused around hearing the voice of the next generation and shaping ourselves in response to that. So we have some panels with NextGen on the panel, Gen Z. We have some experts from ANSPs and industry around the globe helping to think through some of the issues, and also a CEO's breakfast where we bring together the Gen Z and the CEOs to allow for that kind of mentoring and cross collaboration, cross communication of activities. So yeah, worthwhile looking at that. If you aren't already, please do come down. Marina, anything from you as we wrap up?
Well, nothing other than saying again, thank you for everyone who joined today, and really hope that also our future webinars will have even bigger audience, because this topic, all of these topics today, they don't finish today. We will continue talking about them, not necessarily having a solution at that moment, but just discussing and sharing it. This is already a great value for everyone, sharing experiences and taking what is necessary, what is valuable for each of us within this group.
Absolutely, 100%. So please do get in touch with ourselves, with anyone else. If you're interested in learning more of these different examples and how they can work for you, let's make sure we're sharing this knowledge. Thank you so much to CANSO for helping us to host. Wish you all a very good day. Bye-bye.